September 21st, 2001, Washington, D.C., Defense Intelligence Agency headquarters. At 9:15 a.m., inside one of the most secure buildings in the U.S., intelligence community, federal agents initiated an arrest based on a counterintelligence inquiry that had produced over 300 pages of surveillance logs, 3 matched cipher samples, and multiple high-frequency intercepts tied to Cuban intelligence. DIA analysts processed more than 30,000 classified products annually, supported by 15 U.S. intelligence agencies. Penetration was considered unlikely. Internal breaches were generally detected within months. Yet the subject of the warrant was not a foreign operative, but a senior analyst with direct access to compartmented military intelligence. Her assessments shaped U.S. strategy in Latin America for over a decade. According to later declassified FBI case files, she had supplied Cuban intelligence with restricted material for 16 years, using shortwave instructions, one-time pads, and memorized data. The contradiction became unavoidable. How did one analyst infiltrate and survive inside the Pentagon's intelligence structure for nearly 2 decades without detection? 1985. Washington, D.C. Defense Intelligence Agency. Personnel intake logs showed DIA hired over 400 new analysts that year as Cold War tensions persisted in Central America. The Reagan administration had increased intelligence spending across 16 agencies. Annual budgets exceeded $20 to $25 billion. Ana Montes joined the Defense Intelligence Agency during heightened U.S.-Cuba rivalry. The Caribbean remained a strategic theater. Cuba maintained close ties to the Soviet Union despite economic isolation. American policymakers viewed Havana as Moscow's proxy in the Western Hemisphere. Cuba's intelligence service, the Dirección de Inteligencia, operated under fundamentally different principles. While smaller and less technologically sophisticated than American agencies, the DI specialized in human penetration of U.S. political and security institutions. Cuban intelligence officers identified and recruited agents based on ideological alignment rather than financial incentives. According to declassified Cuban files obtained through post-Cold War intelligence sharing agreements, Montes was targeted before joining DIA. This represented an inversion of standard spy recruitment patterns. Most penetrations occurred after individuals gained security clearance. The DI assessed potential access, then positioned recruits accordingly. DIA recruitment vetting operated under a fundamental assumption. Rigorous background investigations, psychological evaluations, and periodic polygraphs prevented ideological penetrations. Analysts believed financial motivations drove espionage. They screened for debt, gambling, substance abuse, and foreign contacts that might create vulnerability. The DI assessed that ideologically motivated recruits were easiest to embed. They required no financial payments that might generate suspicious deposits or lifestyle changes. They possessed internal justification that reduced psychological stress during security reviews. The DI's 1985 operational ledger, partially declassified in 2009, includes references to a newly activated U.S.-based source with access projections identical to Montes's future assignments. Cuban intelligence had successfully positioned an asset inside the Pentagon's intelligence structure before she processed her first classified document. By year's end, Montes had completed security clearance processing and begun producing intelligence assessments. Her performance evaluations noted strong analytical skills and comprehensive understanding of regional dynamics. Cuban intelligence had embedded an agent inside U.S. military intelligence. The penetration would remain undetected for 16 years, 1985 to 1989, DIA headquarters. The Latin America division generated 1,200 to 1,500 classified intelligence products annually, including briefings for U.S. Southern Command and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. These assessments shaped military planning, diplomatic initiatives, and covert operations throughout the Caribbean and Latin America. Analysts used STU-3 secure telephones for classified communications. DSNet terminals provided access to Defense Department intelligence databases. Early JWICS nodes connected DIA with other intelligence community agencies. Montes integrated satellite imagery from KH-11 reconnaissance systems with NSA regional signals intelligence. She accessed military order of battle maps, human intelligence summaries from CIA officers, and interagency threat assessments combining diplomatic, military, and intelligence sources. The position required top-secret clearance with sensitive compartmented information access. This permitted her to view operational plans before implementation, agent reports identifying human sources inside foreign governments, and signals intelligence revealing foreign military communication patterns. Declassified performance reports show she rapidly became a key regional analyst. Her assessments appeared in daily intelligence briefings delivered to senior Pentagon officials. Her analysis influenced policy recommendations presented to the National Security Council. The United States believed Cuba lacked capacity for strategic insight. DI reports from the same period, declassified decades later, show Cuban intelligence received near real-time information about U.S. military activities, diplomatic initiatives, and covert operations. The quality and accuracy exceeded anything Cuba could obtain through conventional collection. By 1987, Cuban internal assessments mirrored DIA language and formatting patterns. Intelligence reports prepared for Fidel Castro contained terminology, organizational structures, and analytical frameworks identical to Pentagon briefings. This indicated high-level penetration with direct access to finished intelligence products. She did not request unusual materials or access files outside her responsibility. Security systems recorded no anomalies. Counterintelligence reviews found no irregularities. Polygraph examinations produced no deceptive responses. The DI received comprehensive intelligence without triggering any safeguards designed to detect penetrations. The methods worked because they exploited a fundamental assumption. Spies steal documents and leave physical evidence. Montes created none. She memorized information during normal work, reconstructed assessments at home, and transmitted encrypted summaries through channels resembling ordinary communications. Late 1980s, Washington metro area. The National Security Agency recorded dozens of high-frequency Cuban numbers transmissions weekly, each coded with 5 number groups. These broadcasts followed patterns established by Warsaw Pact intelligence services. Shortwave transmissions traveled thousands of miles using simple equipment. Receivers required no special authorization. Broadcasts reached multiple locations simultaneously. Montes used DI-issued shortwave receivers and one-time pads to receive instructions. The equipment resembled ordinary commercial radios. Without matching pads held by Cuban handlers, transmissions remained indecipherable. All classified data transferred was reconstructed from memory, eliminating physical trails. She did not photograph documents, copy files to removable media, or print classified materials at home. She reviewed intelligence products during normal work, committed details to memory, and recreated assessments after leaving the secure facility. This method defeated every document control system DIA employed. Security officers counted files, logged documents checked out overnight, audited copying machines and printers, and monitored computer access. None detected Montes because she removed no physical materials. Information left DIA headquarters inside her memory. Cuban intelligence officers operating under diplomatic cover met her at locations selected for counter-surveillance advantages. She delivered encrypted messages prepared at home. They provided new one-time pads, confirmed receipt of previous transmissions, and issued instructions. The DI used water-soluble pad sheets. If seized, the paper dissolved rapidly when exposed to water, leaving no recoverable data. CIA and DIA expected spies to steal documents or remove storage media. The DI exploited this U.S. bias toward material evidence. A DI memorandum partially declassified in 2012 praised an unnamed U.S. analyst whose precision mirrors internal U.S. structure. This represented the first archival clue to her impact. NSA analysts observed shortwave transmissions but could not decrypt one-time pad encryption. They recorded transmission times, frequencies, and signal strengths, identifying them as Cuban intelligence communications. But without matching pad sheets, they could not read encoded messages or identify intended recipients. By decade's end, Montes had established sustainable operational patterns. She accessed intelligence during normal duties, memorized key information, reconstructed assessments at home, encrypted data using Cuban one-time pads, transmitted through shortwave communications, and met handlers at secure locations. Each step avoided detection mechanisms in U.S. counterintelligence systems. 1990 to 1993, Washington, D.C., and U.S. Southern Command. U.S. Southern Command processed 1,600 classified updates monthly during regional crises. The Cold War's end did not reduce American military involvement in Latin America. Drug interdiction intensified. Democratic transitions required security assistance. Economic instability generated political upheaval, demanding intelligence support. Montes gained deeper access during post-Cold War interagency coordination. Counter-narcotics operations required integration of CIA human intelligence, NSA signals intelligence, and DIA military assessments. She viewed CIA briefings on political developments and covert operations. She accessed NSA reports on intercepted communications. She received State Department cables describing diplomatic initiatives. Her analytical products incorporated multi-source intelligence into comprehensive assessments delivered to senior Pentagon officials, National Security Council staff, and military commanders. Her work directly influenced U.S. policy decisions, military deployments, and covert operations. The DI received near-complete summaries of U.S. operational intentions. Cuban intelligence officers read assessments describing American military capabilities, planned operations, and strategic objectives. They learned about CIA activities targeting Cuban interests. They identified U.S. intelligence sources in Latin America. They obtained advance warning of diplomatic initiatives affecting Cuban foreign policy. Despite Soviet collapse, the DI maintained one of the most efficient human intelligence systems in the Western Hemisphere. Cuban cables from this period, declassified through later intelligence sharing agreements, show high confidence insight into U.S. planning with accuracy identical to DIA's internal models. She attended interagency conferences where CIA, NSA, DIA, and State Department representatives coordinated Latin America policy. She participated in working groups developing intelligence requirements for military operations. Each interaction expanded her knowledge of U.S. capabilities, methods, and intentions. Her performance evaluations consistently rated her among top analysts. Supervisors noted comprehensive regional knowledge, analytical rigor, and ability to synthesize complex information. They recommended her for promotion and expanded responsibilities. By 1993, Montes had provided Cuban intelligence with comprehensive insight into American military activities, intelligence operations, and policy planning. She had compromised ongoing CIA operations, identified U.S. intelligence sources, and revealed American diplomatic strategies. The penetration continued without detection. 1990s. Washington, D.C. FBI internal audits conducted during investigation confirmed 0 lost files, 0 unauthorized printouts, and 0 missing documents linked to Montes throughout her DIA career. This represented an unprecedented scenario. Every major espionage case prosecuted in previous decades involved physical evidence of document theft, unauthorized copying, or information storage on personal media. Aldrich Ames, the CIA officer who spied for Soviet and Russian intelligence from 1985 to 94, left extensive physical evidence. He copied classified documents, prepared written summaries, transferred files to computer disks, and maintained notes. Investigators recovered documentary evidence from his residence and office. Robert Hansen, the FBI agent who spied for Soviet and Russian intelligence from 1979 to 2001, created similar trails. He copied documents, downloaded files to removable media, prepared diskettes containing intelligence, and left digital traces of unauthorized database access. Montes left none. Her memorization and mental reconstruction bypassed all physical security systems, forming the foundation of U.S. counterintelligence doctrine. The DI encryption system consisted of Cuban Type 1 ciphers, employing 5 number groups transmitted via shortwave. This provided mathematically unbreakable security when properly implemented. Each one-time pad contained pages of random numbers. The sender and receiver both possessed identical pads. Shortwave transmission offered additional security. Broadcasts traveled through the ionosphere, reaching vast areas. Thousands of potential receivers could monitor transmissions. Identifying the intended recipient required matching the encrypted message to a specific pad. Handovers occurred via coded meetings. Cuban intelligence officers met Montes at locations in Washington, permitting counter-surveillance detection. They varied meeting times and locations. During meetings, she delivered encrypted messages prepared at home. Handlers provided new pads, confirmed receipt of intelligence, and issued guidance. The system avoided every counterintelligence safeguard. Document controls could not detect missing files because she removed none. Computers generated no suspicious activity because she accessed only appropriate materials. Financial monitoring detected no unusual deposits because she received no payments. The contrast with other cases highlighted Cuban tradecraft effectiveness. Ames received over $2 million, creating bank deposits and lifestyle changes that attracted attention. Hansen received over $1,400,000, generating similar indicators. Montes received no money. The DI recruited agents based on ideological motivation, eliminating financial trails that exposed most spies. NSA noted rising Cuban broadcast activity during the 90s, but could not decrypt one-time pad encryption or identify agents receiving transmissions. American agencies spent billions on insider threat programs, counterintelligence investigations, and technical surveillance. None detected Montes because her tradecraft avoided physical evidence. 1993 to 98, DIA headquarters. Montes's annual evaluations consistently placed her in top analytical tiers. Performance reviews documented her as one of the most knowledgeable Cuba analysts in the intelligence community. Her assessments appeared regularly in senior-level briefings. Her judgments influenced policy recommendations. In 1996, she became senior analyst for Cuba within DIA's Latin America division. This provided access to the most sensitive intelligence about Cuban military capabilities, political developments, and intelligence operations. She reviewed classified reporting from all collection disciplines, human intelligence from CIA sources inside Cuba, signals intelligence from NSA intercepts, and imagery intelligence from reconnaissance satellites. Senior analysts reviewed intelligence before it reached other personnel. They evaluated source credibility, identified collection gaps, recommended intelligence priorities, coordinated with analysts from other agencies, and briefed senior officials directly. She reviewed sensitive human intelligence streams, including reports identifying Cuban intelligence networks in the United States and Latin America. These described Cuban recruitment methods, operational patterns, and communication systems. They identified individuals suspected of working for Cuban intelligence and detailed ongoing FBI investigations. Intelligence she passed allowed the DI to adjust their counterintelligence posture. Cuban intelligence officers learned which operations had been detected, which agents were under investigation, and what U.S. intelligence gaps existed. They adapted activities to avoid detection and protect networks. DI documentation from later declassifications shows they restructured networks based precisely on information from Montes. Cuban intelligence recalled officers whose activities attracted FBI attention. They suspended contact with identified agents. They altered communication methods to avoid NSA intercepts. Internal Cuban memoranda from this period, released decades later, document DI assessment of their penetration. One noted the source continues to exceed expectations, with access expanding. Another described receiving intelligence of the highest strategic value. During this period, her influence extended beyond analytical products. She participated in interagency working groups coordinating Latin America policy. She represented DIA at conferences and meetings. She provided input on intelligence collection requirements. Each activity gave insight into the full scope of U.S. intelligence operations against Cuba. By 98, Montes had become indispensable to DIA's Cuba analysis. When officials needed information about Cuban military capabilities, they consulted her. When policymakers requested assessments, she prepared them. When commanders planned operations, they relied on her analysis. The penetration had become institutionalized. 1998, NSA Fort Meade and FBI headquarters. The National Security Agency recorded recurring encrypted Cuban transmissions using cipher formats from past DI networks identified through previous counterintelligence investigations. Signals analysts monitored high-frequency communications from Cuban transmitter sites. They documented broadcast schedules, frequency selections, and encoding characteristics. They compared new transmissions with archived signals from known Cuban operations. Pattern analysis indicated continuity in Cuban tradecraft. The encoding system matched techniques used by the DI since the 60s. 5-number groups followed formatting consistent with one-time pad encryption. Transmission timing suggested coordinated agent communications rather than diplomatic or military traffic. NSA could not decrypt messages. One-time pad cryptography, properly implemented, provided perfect secrecy. Without specific pad sheets, even sophisticated cryptanalytic techniques could not recover plain text. But signals intelligence offered other approaches. Transmission frequency suggested active operations. The number of distinct broadcasts indicated multiple agents. Traffic analysis provided insight when message content remained secret. Signals analysis indicated a U.S.-based high-level source. The transmission pattern differed from networks supporting lower-level agents. Broadcast frequency was higher. Message length was longer. Communication suggested substantial intelligence reporting rather than occasional updates. The FBI initiated cross-agency comparison of access logs, travel records, and meeting attendance. Counterintelligence investigators developed profiles of individuals who could provide the intelligence apparently being transmitted. They focused on personnel with sustained access to Latin America intelligence, particularly Cuba-related material. The investigation required careful methodology. Thousands of individuals possessed appropriate clearances. Hundreds worked on Cuba-related issues. Dozens had access profiles matching intelligence Cuba appeared to receive. Investigators needed additional data points to narrow the suspect pool. They compared travel records with gaps in Cuban transmissions. They analyzed meeting attendance to identify individuals present where sensitive information was discussed. They reviewed personnel assignments to find analysts whose access expanded or contracted in ways correlating with changes in Cuban intelligence reporting. Data pointed to an insider with elite-level access, someone already inside the intelligence community, someone with sustained access over many years, someone whose position provided comprehensive insight into U.S. intelligence operations. This challenged assumptions underlying American counterintelligence practice. Cipher frequency patterns documented by NSA matched numbers later recovered from Montes's residence. The correlation was exact. 5-number groups in her one-time pad materials corresponded precisely to transmissions NSA had recorded over years. But in '98, investigators had not yet identified her. 2000 to 2001, Washington, D.C. A seized laptop belonging to a suspected foreign operative contained encryption charts linked to the DI network. The discovery occurred during an unrelated counterintelligence investigation. FBI agents executing a search warrant recovered electronic devices from a Florida residence. Forensic examination revealed files containing numerical sequences matching known Cuban intelligence encryption formats. The encryption charts provided a breakthrough. They included sequences matching numbers from previous Cuban espionage cases. They contained formatting corresponding to one-time pad systems. Most importantly, they provided comparison data for signals intelligence. NSA analysts matched laptop sequences with intercepted shortwave transmissions, confirming these were part of an active Cuban intelligence network operating inside the United States. Investigation 79001 formed as a joint FBI-DIA task force. The FBI contributed counterintelligence expertise, investigative resources, and legal authority. DIA provided access to personnel records, security files, and operational knowledge of intelligence processes. Investigators developed methodology for identifying the source. They created a matrix of requirements. The individual must have sustained access to Latin America intelligence, work in the Washington area, possess appropriate clearances, have worked in relevant positions throughout the 90s, and have access to specific types of intelligence Cuban reports indicated they were receiving. This narrowed the suspect pool to fewer than 50 individuals across the intelligence community. Surveillance data narrowed suspects to a handful of analysts. The FBI deployed physical surveillance teams. They observed travel patterns, social contacts, and daily routines. They looked for behavior suggesting espionage. Montes's access, travel, and coded laptop entries aligned with DI methodology. Her work patterns provided opportunities to access intelligence. Cuban reports indicated they were receiving. Her travel correlated with gaps and resumptions in shortwave transmissions. Her computer usage included activities consistent with encryption preparation. Investigators obtained legal authority for enhanced surveillance. Computer forensics revealed her creating encrypted files, at times correlating with Cuban broadcast schedules. The files contained numerical sequences formatted identically to one-time pad encrypted messages. Radio frequency analysis connected her to specific transmissions. FBI surveillance captured her entering DI structured numeric sequences into her home computer. This represented first clear proof connecting her to Cuban intelligence operations. By mid-2001, investigators had developed a comprehensive case. They had signals intelligence from NSA, surveillance evidence from FBI, forensic data from computer analysis, and correlation data linking her access to compromised intelligence. Early 2001, Washington, D.C. The FBI documented Montes decoding shortwave transmissions on DI-linked frequencies in her residence. Surveillance teams used technical equipment to monitor her activities without alerting her to their presence. They documented her receiving Cuban broadcasts, using decryption materials, and preparing encrypted responses. Decryption sheets recovered during a court-authorized search matched Cuban ciphers identified in previous espionage cases. The sheets contained pages of 5-number groups. The formatting matched one-time pad systems. Forensic analysis confirmed these were authentic Cuban intelligence encryption devices. The paper composition matched that used by the DI. The printing characteristics resembled materials recovered in other cases. Forensic linguistics linked Cuban intelligence reports to her analytical voice. The FBI obtained Cuban intelligence assessments through foreign liaison services. Linguistic analysts compared these with Montes's DIA assessments. They examined vocabulary choices, sentence structure, analytical frameworks, and organizational patterns. They identified consistent matches. Cuban reports reflected her writing style, used terminology she favored, and structured analysis the way she structured analysis. Cross-agency confirmation established her as the DI penetration. CIA reviewed records and found intelligence she accessed that later appeared in Cuban operations. NSA compared intercepts with her communication patterns and found matches. DIA examined compromised operations and traced them to information she could have provided. Her memorization tradecraft meant no classified material was physically present in her residence. This complicated prosecution. Espionage trials typically relied on recovered documents to prove defendants possessed and transmitted national defense information. Prosecutors would rely on encryption materials, surveillance documentation, forensic linguistics, and correlation between her access and compromised intelligence. Senior officials faced urgent concerns. After September 11th, the intelligence community reorganized to address terrorist threats. New programs launched. Montes would likely be briefed into programs supporting military operations in Afghanistan. She would gain access to information about troop deployments, special operations, intelligence sources, and operational plans. Officials warned she was days away from receiving new counterterrorism access. The decision became urgent, allowing an identified penetration to access information about ongoing military operations was unacceptable. The arrest was scheduled for September 21st, 4 days before she was to be briefed into a classified counterterrorism program. September 21st, 2001, DIA headquarters. The operation required coordinated action from FBI counterintelligence, DIA security, and Department of Defense General Counsel. Federal agents prepared arrest warrants based on probable cause affidavits, documenting evidence accumulated during Investigation 79001. The operation began at 9:15 a.m. FBI special agents entered DIA headquarters with arrest warrants charging Montes with conspiracy to commit espionage under Title 18 United States Code Section 794. She was intercepted in a hallway before attending a classified meeting. Agents identified themselves, informed her she was under arrest, and advised her of constitutional rights. She did not resist. She accompanied agents peacefully as they escorted her from DIA headquarters to FBI offices. FBI agents executed a search warrant at her residence simultaneously. Search teams recovered shortwave radio equipment, one-time pads containing pages of 5-number groups, code charts showing numerical sequences matching Cuban intelligence formats, and operational devices including computers and storage media. Her admission during initial interrogation closed significant gaps in the investigative case. After receiving Miranda warnings, she agreed to speak with FBI agents. She acknowledged her relationship with Cuban intelligence. She described her recruitment by the DI before joining DIA. She explained her tradecraft methodology. She confirmed she had memorized and transmitted classified information to Cuban intelligence for 16 years. Matched cipher evidence completed the case. Forensic analysts compared materials recovered from her residence with encryption systems identified in previous Cuban intelligence operations. The one-time pads matched, the code charts matched, the radio frequencies matched, every technical detail aligned with DI tradecraft documented over decades. The arrest ended a 16-year breach without a single missing physical document. Had investigators waited 1 week longer, she would have attended classified briefings about post-September 11th military operations. She would have gained access to information about troop deployments to Afghanistan, special operations details, and intelligence activities supporting the emerging war on terrorism. The September 21st arrest prevented this compromise. It closed the penetration before she accessed new compartmented programs. It ensured classified information about ongoing military operations remained secure. 2001 to 2002, Washington, D.C. The damage assessment spanned more than 300 pages and involved all major intelligence agencies. DIA led the assessment, but CIA, NSA, FBI, State Department, and military intelligence services all contributed. The assessment required over a year to complete. Investigators documented every classified program she accessed, every intelligence report she read, and every meeting she attended. They created a comprehensive map of her knowledge across 16 years. This revealed the breadth of penetration. She had accessed intelligence about military capabilities, operational plans, and covert activities throughout Latin America. Compromised materials included forward deployment summaries showing U.S. military force positioning, equipment readiness, and operational planning. Human intelligence networks suffered extensive compromise. She had accessed reports identifying CIA sources inside Cuba. At least one confidential U.S. source operating in Cuba was compromised, according to Justice Department impact statements. Military plans for various contingencies involving Cuba or Latin American scenarios were extensively compromised. The Department of Justice described her as among the most damaging penetrations in modern U.S. history. This placed her alongside Aldrich Ames and Robert Hanssen in terms of intelligence compromise. In October 2002, Ana Montes pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit espionage under Title 18 United States Code Section 794. The guilty plea avoided trial and public disclosure of additional classified information. She received a 25-year federal sentence, the maximum penalty allowed under the plea agreement. The damage assessment concluded that ideological motivation produced maximum effect espionage with minimum cost methods. This challenged assumptions in U.S. counterintelligence doctrine. Montes received no payments. She lived modestly. Her motivation was ideological alignment with Cuban political positions. This made her more dangerous than financially motivated spies. She required no payment that might generate evidence. She possessed internal justification that sustained commitment over years. She exhibited no psychological stress during polygraph examinations. 2002 to 2023, United States intelligence community. Insider threat monitoring programs expanded significantly following damage assessment completion. The Defense Department, intelligence community, and individual agencies implemented new security measures designed to detect penetrations, regardless of motivation. Increased polygraph frequency became standard for personnel with access to highly classified compartmented programs. Enhanced digital monitoring systems tracked computer usage patterns more comprehensively. Security systems logged not just what files analysts accessed, but how they used information. Algorithms identified unusual patterns, Interagency data fusion allowed counterintelligence analysts to correlate information across organizational boundaries. New systems integrated data from multiple sources to identify patterns no single agency could detect alone. Agencies redesigned compartmented programs to limit individual access. They implemented need-to-know restrictions more rigorously. Equal focus on ideological as well as financial motivations became standard in security training. Analysts learned to recognize indicators of ideological alignment with hostile nations. Security personnel received instruction on detecting spies motivated by political beliefs rather than money. A 2005 Inspector General report labeled ideological penetrations as the least detectable vector for espionage. The report recommended fundamental changes in counterintelligence doctrine. It argued that behavioral indicators, pattern analysis, and technical monitoring were more effective than financial audits for detecting ideologically motivated spies. The Montes case permanently changed how American intelligence agencies approached insider threats. It became a standard teaching example in counterintelligence training courses. Security professionals studied her recruitment, tradecraft, and eventual detection. Intelligence liaison partners learned from the case as well. American agencies shared information about Cuban intelligence methods with friendly foreign services. January 2023, Federal Medical Center, Fort Worth, Texas. Washington, D.C. Ana Montes completed her sentence after serving more than 20 years in federal custody. Federal Bureau of Prisons records confirmed her release in January 2023. She was 65 years old. She entered prison in her early 40s. She lost 2 decades to incarceration for espionage committed in service to a foreign government. Within counterintelligence and security communities, the case remained a benchmark. Training programs continued using it as a primary case study. Security reforms implemented after her arrest remained in effect. The methodologies her case revealed continued influencing how agencies approached insider threats. Her espionage reshaped policy, training, and counterintelligence doctrine across the U.S. intelligence community. The reforms implemented after her arrest addressed vulnerabilities her penetration exposed. The training programs developed in response improved detection capabilities. The doctrinal changes enhanced security throughout the intelligence apparatus. The historical significance extends beyond immediate security improvements. The case demonstrated fundamental challenges in counterintelligence that remain relevant decades later. How do organizations detect motivated insiders who follow strict tradecraft discipline? How do security systems identify threats that generate no physical evidence? How do counterintelligence programs address ideological motivation when existing systems focus on financial incentives? The Montes case provided no simple solutions to these challenges. It demonstrated that comprehensive security systems could be defeated through disciplined tradecraft. It showed that patient, methodical investigation eventually succeeded even against sophisticated operational security. It illustrated that no security system was perfect and no intelligence operation was invulnerable. The legacy includes technical, procedural, and doctrinal impacts. Technically, the case drove development of enhanced monitoring systems and analytical tools. Procedurally, it prompted stricter access controls and more frequent security reviews. Doctrinally, it expanded understanding of insider threats beyond financially motivated espionage to include ideological penetrations. For Cuban intelligence, the case represented both success and failure. They successfully recruited, positioned, and managed an agent inside U.S. military intelligence for 16 years. They extracted comprehensive classified information about American capabilities, operations, and intentions. But they ultimately lost their agent to counterintelligence investigation. Ana Montes spent 16 years as one of Cuban intelligence's most valuable sources inside U.S. military intelligence. She spent more than 20 years in federal prison paying the legal penalty for her espionage. She will spend the remainder of her life as a convicted spy whose actions cause lasting damage to American national security. Her case endures as a reminder that intelligence work involves human decisions with permanent consequences. The case study value ensures future generations of intelligence and security professionals will study Ana Montes. They will analyze her recruitment, examine her tradecraft, and evaluate her detection. They will incorporate these lessons into security systems designed to prevent similar penetrations. If you value factual Cold War history, consider supporting Cold War Files.